for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. In the studio, waiting to be profiled, is Christine Kludjian and artist Charles Karubian. His work is on the set, and it looks fabulous, so you'll get to talk to him later. Actress Christine Kludjian was born and raised in Santa Monica and still lives in Santa Monica, not far from our production studio. She earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater Arts, also close by to Santa Monica at Pepperdine University in Malibu. She appeared in Pepperdine's Smothers Brothers Theater and a lot of productions. So I guess you always wanted to act.
I guess. You know, it didn't hit me until I think I went into college, and I thought, you know, I keep doing the acting thing, so this is probably what I want to do. And therefore, I majored in it at Pepperdine. But of course, in the acting business, a degree means absolutely nothing. But if you want to have, you know, experience in theater history and all of that, then it's really good, and you get a well-rounded education.
But you went into other things before you started acting. You did produce charity events?
I did.
What was that all about?
It was really fascinating. I sort of fell into it. It was literally, you know, not to glamorize it at all. I graduated from college, had no money, no job, no nothing. And a friend of mine said there's this nonprofit organization that I work for called the ERA Center for Children, underprivileged children who are from at-risk conditions. And so I just started to work for them, and then my natural, you know, people skills and production skills just sort of came out, and I moved up in the center, and I started to produce celebrity charity events, tennis tournaments.
Is that what you were doing?
Comedy events, you know, fashion shows, and it was a lot of fun. You got to help children in the process.
Fashion shows takes us to the part where you also modeled.
Yes.
You had a career in modeling. And what kind of modeling? What did you say?
Okay, I said fitness and statue. So if you've ever been to Venice Beach, if anybody's been to California and gone to Venice Beach, you'll see these models who are wearing clothing and they're in a frozen position. And they're there for a long time, and you get pennies thrown at you and little things thrown at you while you're standing there, but it's really fascinating.
You did that?
So I did that.
But what were you? Just a person dressed?
I would work for various stores modeling their clothes. So every 10 minutes you would put on whatever they asked you to put on and be on a stage and just literally freeze in a position and model. But then I kind of added a twist to it as time went by. I thought, this is getting ridiculous just being frozen. So I would move, so it'd be like a moving statue. And it was a really fun way to show off their clothes, and it was fun for me to create this.
It was kind of mime, though, wasn't it?
In a way, we ended up telling stories from, you know, I would have a partner who, a male model who I would model with, and we would literally create stories with each other while modeling these clothes, and we used to have huge crowds. And this is what I did in transition after the ERA Center, from nonprofit organization for children to this, and then fitness stuff.
I think the modeling and standing there and having people stare at you had to get you ready for the stage.
Have to.
Have to.
Plus, you know, ever since I was little, my brother and I would always put on little things like stage plays, and I used to create the, you know, nativity scene every Christmas, and I would be the director and the producer and Mary.
And the actor and Mary, right.
And I made my brother be it was crazy, but anyway, so that kind of started, you know, when I was that young. But boy, being in front of all those people and having them stare at you is really something.
What always, when you're in Europe and the squares, people are always dressed up like some character from that area, especially in Paris and many other squares.
Yeah.
And I wonder, how do those people do that? Even in New York, everywhere there's tourists.
Right. You'll find a square.
And you'll find someone standing there just like you were doing.
Yeah, it's wild.
That did take you into TV work.
Yeah.
It took you into Movies of the Week.
Yes.
Did you do commercials?
You know, it's funny enough, I usually in my life have done everything backwards.
Oh.
I'm just one of those people where most actresses start out doing commercials because it's kind of an easy way in.
Yes.
Not for me. I went right into doing theater, TV, great guest stars early on in my career, and then now I'm doing commercials.
So you switched.
It just kind of worked out that way.
You did films. You worked with Lorenzo Lamas. What was that? Tell us what that was.
That was really, it was exciting. I got to play a sort of a hit woman.
In what film?
It's called Good Cop, Bad Cop, and it's being played now. You'll see it on TV here and there. And I got to, you know, kick some people around a little bit and got to show off some of my martial arts skills.
Oh, you did?
Which I just happened to come by. You know, I never was formally trained, but they hired me, and I said okay, and we did it, and it was a lot of fun. But we played opposite each other in the sense that I was the antagonist and he was the protagonist. So, you know, the bad guy basically. I'm always the bad guy in these shows.
And with Rob Lowe?
Then Rob Lowe, I played a Greek goddess warrior.
Oh, that fit perfectly.
I guess. I don't know.
A tall Armenian.
Yeah, a tall Armenian, right. I was sloshing around the mountains, some mountains over here in California, which is supposed to be ancient Greece, with airplanes flying above. Right. So yeah, that was ancient Greece. And that was a lot of fun. That's called Escape Under Pressure.
And then you did some musicals.
Done some musicals.
Did you take singing lessons?
Never formally.
Dance lessons?
Never formally. But you know what? My family is so musical and so artistic. My mother just sort of always exposed us to those things, and we took you know, dance lessons here and there, and I always sort of sung in the house. So,
but you didn't continue like formal lessons.
No.
You were on stage in West Side Story.
West Side Story and Guys and Dolls.
And you had to sing and dance.
That's right.
And you had to sing and dance at Guys and Dolls.
But I'm a really good improviser. That's my thing. Is I'm a really good imitator and a. What's the word I'm looking for? If I hear somebody do something, I can copy that.
Right.
You know? The best story, which I know you will appreciate, is I did a guest star on Frasier. And I had to learn to play the viola in
I was just going to ask
5 weeks. Yeah, I beat you to the chase, Joan.
You did. I was going to ask you if you played a musical instrument.
3. The piano and the violin when I was growing up. And then all of a sudden I get this audition to play the viola for Frasier. They want an actress who can, you know, be the guest star and act and also has to know how to play the viola. I said, well, I play the violin. It's the same thing. And the guy says, no. You have to play the viola. And I went, okay. So I left the audition. I said, I got to learn to play this instrument. And
well, how different was it?
Very different. I had no idea. I thought the viola was just a little bit bigger than the violin,
Exactly.
therefore I have to just be a little bit wider. No way. It's an entirely different musical language. It's like reading, if you've been used to reading Japanese, you're reading Chinese now. And
it looks like the symbols are the same, but it doesn't work.
Completely different, and I did it well enough. They hired me, and I was concerned about my musical obligations on the show. So I called the production office when I got hired, and I said, "Hi, it's Christine. What's going to be required of me musically?" You know, and they said, "Nothing. We've already pre-recorded the music. All you have to do is pretend like you're playing."
Perfect.
But you have to know how to do something to pretend to do it,
but
right?
That was good. You knew how to finger the so you did okay.
Yes, exactly.
But
it was great.
Going from that, music, viola, singing, the Greek diva.
Oh, the Greek diva, there you go.
The first time I saw you in a play was Tosca.
I know.
The Italian diva.
Amazing.
I mean, it looked like Maria Callas all over the stage.
I'm glad you said that, because that was my point in doing Tosca. That's exactly my point.
And it was written by one Carlos Malpelli.
That's right.
Who also directed it.
Yes.
And
acted in it as well.
And acted in it, which was phenomenal.
Amazing. Yeah.
So how did you get that role? Were you pretending?
Yes.
You were.
And you don't even know this, so this is going to be a first for you. My boyfriend and I went to go see the opera, Puccini's opera Tosca, at the Music Center last spring. And I decided I wanted to play, to pay tribute to Maria Callas because that's what she made famous, was Tosca, and vice versa. So I got dressed up as Maria Callas would have in the 60s. I put on a thing, the dress, and I got a bouffant.
Yes.
And I did the makeup very 60s. And anyway, we went to the show, and in the lobby happens to be intermission Juan Carlos.
Oh, no.
And 2 or 3 of the people who he has already cast for his Tosca, and he sees Peter. They've been friends for years.
Oh, your
Peter,
your date, Peter?
My date, Peter.
Knows Juan Carlos?
Yes, for years. And then I had met Juan Carlos before because I did a little part in a film with all of them. Anyway, Juan Carlos turns to me and he says, Tosca. And I said, I know, isn't it a great musical?
Yeah.
He says, no, no, no. You're going to be my Tosca. I'm going into rehearsals in 4 weeks, and I've interviewed everybody, and nobody is right for the part. You have to play Tosca. And he didn't even know,
anything that you could do.
Anything that I could do, but his instinct was absolutely right.
But he took that play all over Europe. And he was really, besides writing it and acting in it, he was really familiar with it. So when he saw you, he must have totally known.
You're
and
absolutely
I'm going to show what happened once you got into the role.
Right.
He did the costumes.
He designed the costumes, and then we had other people come in and create the costumes based on his vision and his layout of it. So we down to the detail, down to the jewelry, down to the makeup. This man was involved in every aspect. Well, as any director, as any good director would do.
And then I'm going to put this up here.
That's fun.
They had a billboard on Santa Monica Boulevard.
It's still up there.
And it's not spelled the same way.
Yes, correct. Well, Puccini.
Why?
Puccini spelled it Tosca for the lead character. And because Juan Carlos is taking the Puccini piece as his base, but then building in another story around it, he wanted to put a K instead of the C to make it his. To put his mark on it.
Here's another scene from there.
Right, that's myself and my co-star Frederick Lancau, and he plays Scarpia, Baron Scarpia.
So the reason it's a K is because Melpelli wanted it to be Melpelli's Tosca.
You got it.
And it has a different story.
Exactly, and it's a red K. So
right. Oh, it's a red K.
Right.
And this is Melpelli.
That's Juan Carlos. He will be very upset with me that I brought that picture in of him, but anyway, that's the only one I had.
But he also directs.
Yes.
He acts in it.
Yes.
He sings some of the music.
Amazingly
that is
enough.
Really great. And he is in a group at the Strasbourg Theater where it's appearing.
Right.
And where it appeared. It started there and it's ending there and it's going all over.
And it's still there right now, so we're, it's been going on for a while. But yeah, he's been with the Strasbourg, with the group at Strasbourg for a while, and I wasn't associated with them, but it all kind of worked out that we worked together.
And before we leave, one other thing that I think you're doing is writing a book. And I thought that was pretty interesting about your Armenian grandfather.
Yeah, it's actually, I haven't decided if it's going to be a book or a play, and I'll probably do both. I'll start with one and then maybe develop it into the other. But my grandfather passed away a couple of years ago at 100 years old. And I thought, how incredible to write something to pay homage to him, and yet create a story about Armenian American life, because as you know,
it's totally different.
It's totally different, and it's a crazy life, but it's a beautiful life. And I kind of have the idea of he being at the center, like maybe, at his birth.
Have you started?
I've started, yeah. And I'm developing these characters. I don't even know. It's amazing what's coming out of my hands.
Do you speak Armenian?
A little bit.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
So you can throw some of that in.
Definitely.
And do you cook Armenian?
Absolutely not.
No, dear.
No. I boil water sometimes.
And you don't throw rice in it?
No. I wouldn't even. I don't even know, where do you buy rice? I mean, it's no way. I mean, I use the blender once in a while, but that's the one thing that separates me from most Armenians is I'm not a cook.
But we might get a book out of you.
Yeah, exactly. How do you like that?
So that's better than
And I can play the viola now,
right.
so.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Joan. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching Christine Kludjian, and don't go away because you're going to see Charles Karubian, the painter, on the next part of our show. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with artist Charles Karubian, who was born and raised in Los Angeles. Charles went as far as San Francisco to attend the Art Institute, then came back to UCLA, where he was in the prestigious Masters of Fine Art program, which I guess was special for you to be a part of.
It was really special. It was a very, very important part of my development as an artist.
I think it would be.
Yeah, I don't think I would be as a professional at what I do if I hadn't gone there, and I don't think I would belong to as special a community of artists as the ones that I met at grad school. It was really important.
Who were the professors at the time?
Oh, the faculty. Well, the faculty is such an incredible faculty. And they're still there. They're going to be there for quite a while, I'm sure. Roger Herman,
oh, yes.
It was my mentor.
Oh, yes.
Someone I think very highly of. Charlie Ray and Larry Pittman and Chris Burden and John Baldessari and Patty Wickman and Don Suggs, and the list goes on, and all of them have incredible things to offer the students.
And so you actually could learn from all of those artists? Were they open with you?
Well, in their own way. You know, they expect you in one way or another to be, to aspire to be as professional as they are.
That's the thing about that master's program, I think. They respect you as an artist on their own level.
Absolutely.
They don't take you in and say, we're going to teach Charles what to do. They paint right along with you, the way Chris Burden explained it to me.
Chris Burden explained it as they paint right along with you?
Yeah, well, that they're right with you.
Well, yeah, that's
and you're
right.
solving problems the same way they're solving problems, and together.
You're absolutely right. Half the time, they do invite you to the studio to see what they do, to see how they live. Although that's only one part of the great program they have there.
Talk about your work a little bit. Was it always portraits and landscapes, or does it go further than that? Let's talk about the portraits first.
Sure. Okay. The portraits and landscapes. Actually, I'd like to take them both, since my last show at Newspace had to do with both. Well, basically, on an art historical level, I suppose I'm addressing the genres as they're represented and sort of segregated at museums, generally. They're not intermixed.
That's right.
And I suppose that sort of also moves into the art critical level.
But is that what you've done? You've mixed them?
Well, yeah, I'm mixing them, and I know that the gallery owner Joni was as surprised as I was at the results, and it was very, very good reception. Very good reception. Part of being an artist is asking questions, not only of yourself and your work, but also not second-guessing the audience.
Let's stop for a minute, because some of your portraits are just people with a very plain background.
Yes.
And why is that plain? Well, to me, that plain background makes me look at that portrait, at that person,
yes,
and figure out what they're doing.
Yes.
But this piece that's on the set has background, so you threw me today when you brought this piece in.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, actually, it's a synthesis. It's a coming together of those two genres, I guess you'd call them, of portraiture and landscape. I'm beginning to combine them. Dad saw my show the other day. I'd like to speak about my dad because he's a great influence in my life. And he called me the other day and said, "Why don't you combine them?"
Oh.
And you know, I take from all sorts of sources, and Dad is one of those sources.
But the Newspace gallery was separate.
They were very separate. They were very distinct,
right,
and yet distinctly different. And yet I didn't want to cut too sharply. I mean, I didn't want the difference to be the point of the show. But here I am combining them and beginning to
It's very lyrical.
Place the portrait in context.
Right. This turned out to be very lyrical. This woman looks like she's moving, actually. And she couldn't maybe move unless she had your landscape with her.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
So who is this and why is she here?
It's a great way. That's a great way of putting it. I love it. It's not a stiff question at all. It's a really fun question. Who is she and why is she here? Well, I think I'm going to approach it approach that question, answering that question the way that I thought of doing it in the first place. It's for the next show that I'm having at the Creative Artists Agency, the CAA in Beverly Hills, and she's here because I'm interested in the idea of the sophistication of art and the innocence of childhood imagery, coupled with the sort of genre of the romantic genre of sort of woodland landscape painting, leafy landscape painting. And I don't know, I've been interested in Rousseau lately. I decided to paint from a very dark and lush place.
I was just going to ask you where your influences came from,
well,
and that already is coming out here.
Exactly, exactly. You can see where it comes from the landscapes in my last show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except your landscapes in the last show were very flat.
They were also distant.
Yes. This looks close and like you're actually in the forest or in the forest.
You know, it really makes me happy when, really, it's so important to me.
What other artists have inspired your work?
Well, Roger Herman, my mentor and friend, inspired my work very much. The lyricism, the calligraphy, the lyric calligraphy of his brush strokes. He creates an image, and yet there's abstract elements in it, and all of that comes together in a very powerful way.
Yeah, you always look at these things, and I guess a novice calls them painterly. And maybe because we see a lot of paint strokes and a lot of paint brushes. And Roger does that, I know. Mm-hmm. And so do you. This is the first time that I noticed it so much. One thing I do have to take back, as I said, you had these flat backgrounds on your portraits, but you had one girl with a skirt, like a dancing person.
Yes.
And that skirt moving actually made me think that that girl was moving on your canvas.
Electrifying.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
And the old guy, the cowboy guy, looked like he could have been ready to sing a song at any time. He was such a hokey guy. Where do you find those?
Well, those were, well, first of all, I've got to let you know that Joni, the gallery owner of Newspace, had seen that work. It wasn't part of my the body of work that I intended for that show, but she looked at them and said, "We've got to have those in. I really want to show those."
And those pieces were the first time I saw them at the House Restaurant on Melrose. And Joni's, Gordon's Newspace is just down the street. So
fate plays.
So she was. It is really true, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how she found me.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you, you were laughing about my asking you what's your favorite color because you're an artist, but
that's right.
Do you have but do you have a palette that you work with? Is there a certain palette? That's not saying what's your favorite color, but it is a combination or a mixture of colors.
The answer to that is it's got to help whatever the palette may be, and I guess that's the answer for you, but whatever the palette may be, must further and strengthen what I'm trying to express to people. If I can use a palette that realize an image and painting that conveys what I wanted to convey, although sometimes I don't always know all that it conveys, then that's it. So my palette is very flexible.
Well, it is flexible.
Very.
Well, what I was going to ask is, does the painting or what you've planned dictate the palette? It must.
It sure does. It sure does. You know, I don't let my palette dictate my work.
That's the difference.
Absolutely not.
When you start something like this, do you do a drawing of it first?
Nope.
You just go right to...
Well, painting is, I mean, a brush is, you can draw with a brush. A brush is a drawing instrument. You can get very, very thin, detailed brushes, and brushes as large as a painter's brush, and do all sorts of things. Have a lot of fun. People ask me that all the time, and I'm thinking of going back to traditional pencil and charcoal drawing soon. I've been asked more than once if I would do a portrait.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know I collect portraits, but can you do a portrait? We're calling these portraits, but that's not actually a person sitting there.
That's right.
So can you do that?
Yeah, but it takes some warming up.
Oh, it does.
You know, I don't want to just do it haphazardly. Oh yes, okay, let's pick up that brush or pencil or charcoal and do a portrait. David Hockney's portraits have always made my jaw drop. I mean, they're so beautiful, and you know you've got to stay in practice for quality as good as that, and I wouldn't want anything less of myself.
But he's very intense. He's a very slow back eye, table eye, canvas. And you said that you paint very fast.
That's right, but you want to, you know, before you begin painting people in life who expect, you know, to create work for them, of them, I mean, that's a very intense thing in and of itself, regardless of whether you draw fast or paint fast or draw slow or paint slow.
I see. Oh, so you think you can do that?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But you still need to warm up.
What about dialogue with artists? Do you think that's important? Do you spend time with other artists talking?
Sure. But honestly, for me, it's not any more important than talking to anyone else.
Is that right?
And talking to a critic like David Pagel, who covered my last show.
It's just people for you.
Absolutely.
Creating the dialogue.
And it's never any one particular demographic.
What about, before we go really fast, on these paintings, do you intend to create a dialogue with the viewer then?
Absolutely.
You do?
Absolutely.
That's how I felt about them.
It's really, really important.
But what happens? Do you dictate what that viewer is going to think?
No.
Or are they thinking themselves?
No, I think David Pagel hit it on the head when he wrote about my last show at Newspace. That is, that it doesn't dictate. I remember Larry Pittman, before we go, I know I've got to make it quick, but I remember my first day in grad school, and Larry Pittman came in and said, you know, your paintings are didactic, and the fact is that he was right. And I think that's when I began to realize that there's a very thin line. You know, you can have paintings tell, but mine don't tell, they ask.
They ask. That's good. And we're going to thank you for being with us today, Charles.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
it's been my
here.
pleasure.
And thank you for listening to Charles Karubian today. And we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.
Thanks a lot.
Keep writing.